Oh my goodness, it's that time again. Devblog 16.
Oh my gosh.
Analysis and prediction video is coming. Sit tight, get ready. We're gonna get so into it, but before we do, I need to do a little bit of self-promotion here, okay? Please be patient with me. You need to follow me on Twitch. That's where all the action is happening with me and my community right now. The really active ones anyway. If you don't follow me, you'll never know when I'm going to be Twitch streaming because I do random weird times, alright? If you really love me, sub on Twitch. That helps me out a great deal. Would love as many subs as I get on Twitch. It's fantastic. Don't forget to subscribe to me here on YouTube. Turn on them notifications. I am not one of those spammers. I don't put up a YouTube video every day and make you feel guilty if you don't watch it. I just put up YouTube videos when I'm inspired to put up a YouTube video, and it's not that often. Join my Steam group, Scrap Mechanic Labs USA. You'll find the greatest bunch of Scrap Mechanic players there you will ever meet. Most awesome people. Check out my Discord, SML Ducky's Lounge. All the links will be in the description of this video. Now, we need to go over some of the talking points. Timeline. We're going to be going over survival mode, challenge mode, the crafting chain, consumables, PvP, the Encrypter, and a bunch of more other little things that we're going to hit on. But before we do, grab your chips, grab your drink. We're going to have a little commercial break, and we'll get together right after this. Alright, welcome back. Let's not waste any more of your time. Or my time for that matter. Our time is precious. Devblog 16 dropped a bomb on us. They gave us a really big teaser on their Twitter about a week ago, showing us the one crate here with that meter on it, that gauge, I guess you could say. What does this all come down to? This comes down to scarcity and them having a easy for you to see way to measure out how much of your resources you're using. This is a really loaded opening statement they have here. And we're going to take some time carefully analyzing what they're telling us. And we're going to ask some important questions about it, like why they're choosing this type of timeline and what they really mean by what they're saying here. So we're going to hop around. I'm not going to read it word for word because this is really the key point that they're pointing out right here. When is survival mode coming out? I know these poor guys have been getting harassed about giving us some kind of bone, giving us some kind of clue about when survival is really going to be coming out. And I can kind of relate to the developers of Scrap Mechanics. I really don't like having to commit to anything. I think there's too much uncertainty in the world for you to commit to a specific or a certain date. But they're trying to give us at least the framework of an idea. They said, yeah, things are coming. We don't want to commit to an exact date, blah, blah, blah. Our goal is to have survival in your hands in 2019. They don't say early 19. They don't say mid 19. They don't say late 20. They just say 2019. If they give it to you on December 31st of 2019, guess what? They were able to keep their word and they gave it to you in 2019. And they even say, further out, with a disclaimer, it's not a promise, just a goal. With that said, things are looking good. Now, from here, they go on to talk about the consumable canisters. They've got 6 different types. They got the water, the electrical, the fuel. I believe this one is the seeds. This one is the fertilizer, and this one is your ammo can. What'll be going in the ammo can? I'm just going to assume right now that's potatoes. But I have a reason to believe the ammo can will probably be using a lot of other different types of ammo, which includes radishes, probably corn. So it's not just going to be restricted to potatoes. And we're going to look at some other pictures so that I can so that we can go into that. But One of the really, really good important pictures now that they give us right here off the bat is this little fuel can. I believe this fuel can represents the consumable itself. It's got a little 20 next to it. And these are the ones that get loaded into the chest slash fuel canister. Because it shows you, like, you know, this is like a storage window. And there's 2 canisters that are worth 20 and 1 canister that's worth 17. So obviously there's been 17, 18, 3 points of this 1 canister has been consumed by the vehicle. And you will be able to carry these, I'm going to assume, in your own inventory. And you can load these things in manually. Unless you're using some kind of crafting chain to build an automated system where you drive up. We're going to get to that in a second. We're going to move towards that. All these things are kind of tied together. But I'm just going over this information in the order that they've laid it out on their Devblog 16 page. I might hop back and forth as I show you how different things tie together. I may even mention other Devblogs. But for now, let's keep this in mind, that this is the actual consumable. That means that each one of these crates is going to use a different consumable. Is there going to be like a little water jug that's like blue, that looks almost like this, that we use to fill up the water jug container? Probably. Are the little batteries going to be the ones that we stack into the big battery container? It's looking like it might be that way. So each kind of container will have its consumable counterpart that you'll be able to aggregate in one way or another as you do your planting and your growing, or you set up your crafting chain to be able to create a fuel that these little guys will be popping out of. Really cool. More future-ish insight into what they're planning on doing. One more thing I want you to keep in mind as we're looking through the rest of this Devblog that's I actually find really interesting is the vehicle. They are using this generic type of car not because I don't think it was a non-standard thing. I think this may be a standardized type of thing where you only have so many parts available to you and you might only be able to build something along this line. Alright? The scarcity of the game and the challenge of survival is going to be based on you making the most of what parts are available. So this is a pretty, you know, there's a limited resources into the building of this vehicle, obviously. And if this is their test bench, that vehicle functions as a test bench for their survival, then you need to be looking at the number of parts that have gone into this vehicle and thinking, I'm probably going to have that same palette to work with when I'm playing survival mode. So keep that in mind as well. Let's move on past the resource containers, and I'll just quickly brush over it. They have 6 working canisters in their survival mode. And you could read it word for word if you want. Now, let's move on to the supply chain. In a previous Devblog, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Devblog, Devblog 14 had, I'll put a picture up here. Devblog 14 showed a animated gift of their crafting chain, and you'll notice that it did have the pipes, but the pipes in Devblog 16, they look much thicker, they look much bulkier than the pipes. And also, the Devblog 14 crafting chain, they had it plugged into different machines to simulate a sort of crafting process that was going on. Here, they just show sort of like an inlet point coming in from someplace off screen. They don't show you, and an outlet point, just pretty much to demonstrate how you would refill one of these in a non-manual way, like they described in the previous pictures up here when they were talking about when they're showing you how a manual refill would work when you see the window and you put it in. But really excited about development towards the crafting chain and how much work they're putting into it. Another thing I want you to pay attention to is the number of screenshots they give us. Why am I pointing that out? Well, I am of the opinion that if the developers are sharing 1, 2, 3 pictures of something, they would say be 3 times more excited about it than if they only shared, say, 1 screenshot of it. Or it would be something more on the far end of the table, you know, that they were working on. If they had a desk full stacked with paperwork, that would be like way over there. But the stuff that's more, you know, up front there that they're really investing a lot of time into is the stuff that they're excited about to share on the Devblog. So it's another way to kind of get inside of the mind of the developers and just maybe, you know, it could all just be, you know, conspiracy. Maybe the number of pictures they share doesn't matter. Maybe it's just me making it up. But I really think, though, that when I'm excited and I want to share something I'm interested in, and it was something that I was doing on the computer and I wanted to share that with someone, and I'd take a lot of pictures of something I did like, I would just take less pictures of something I wasn't as excited about. So, like I said, maybe it is a way to get inside of the mind of these developers when they release these devlogs. Now, the tape bot, I love the art style for this tape bot. It really has a Japanese style feel to it. They've improved the whole gamut of their farm bots. They talked about it in a previous devblog. I'll put up another picture here of their new and improved, better looking farm bots. Well, of course they have to improve those if they're going to have such a cool looking farm bot like the tape bot here. Even the stance is so cool. We're going to take some really close-up images here. I'll probably want to zoom in on this picture a little more. We'll talk about how we have some of the tape bots that look like they're tangled up in tape. And there are a lot of them. They suggest that you're going to want to come in fully loaded to fight off these guys. Shoot them potatoes at them, knock them out. And this is part of the beginning stages of that Super Mario style level that you'll be going into. The challenge, if you will, say, of the survival mode when you're going in. Neat thing about these buildings in survival mode is I'm going to skip ahead because it's important. It all ties together. It all makes sense. Okay, the Encrypter will allow you to hide the connection points. So they brought the Encrypter back in. They talked about this in a couple of... They only talked about this in one previous devblog. Alright, and let me check my notes real quick. I don't think I have the name. I think it was Devblog 10, believe it or not. That's how old it was. Yeah, I think in Devblog 10 was the last time they talked about the Encrypter. And I'll even show you a picture of the old Encrypter just so we can make a comparison of how the Encrypter's changed since Devblog 10 to Devblog 16 now. Now, I only skipped ahead to the Encrypter because it ties in with survival mode in certain ways when you're going to these places. Now, there's going to be really big maps, and there might be warehouses hidden. The warehouse will probably have an Encrypter attached to it so that it's not so easy to find. Or any smaller building may have an Encrypter attached to it. The whole point of the Encrypter is to hide the wireworks and make it so that your connect tool can't be used as a scouting tool. And I don't think that's what they intended for the connect tool to be used for. So, of course, they're going to have a countermeasure that they're building into the game to prevent that, which would be considered an exploit at that point. So, you find your warehouses, you explore them. The Encrypter prevents you not only from seeing them at a distance, if they're behind a mountain or something, the Encrypter also prevents you from destroying any of the blocks inside of the building, if it is even breakable. I think that on the larger warehouses, there'll be more of a terrain object, but I believe that what the Encrypter is telling us here, all right, is that there may be smaller little man-made style objects or destructible style objects with encryptors on them, maybe scattered throughout the map like little Easter egg buildings that are also indestructible until you find the encryptor. Okay? Pretty exciting, pretty fancy stuff, alright? There's other stuff I want to go on about with the encryptor, but as far as the tape bot is concerned, there's a little kind of a hidden Easter egg over here. We'll zoom in on this probably near the end of the video and just take a really close look at that. But as far as everything else, as far as the storage, as here you can see some radishes. In this case, I might zoom that in for the video so you can see it better. But yeah, the different types of plant material that might end up being ammo on different versions of potato-style weaponry, that launch stuff. It's gonna be exciting. All right, here's another really exciting thing. Upgradable interactive parts. Basically, to sum up what they're saying here is, when they were setting up their survival game, they found that just the engine the way it was too powerful to start off with. If you build something with this engine, you'll be able to outrun every monster and it won't be as much of a challenge. So in order to keep with the spirit of making things challenging and interesting, they've decided to make this a tier-based system where you could upgrade the parts from level 1 up to level 5, and it gives it a cool different skin and gives it either different levels of power or efficiency or maybe a mixture of both. The basic idea here, as they demonstrated with the engines, translates over into thrusters. They pretty much say, if you find a thruster and you wanted to build a flying vehicle, it would be extremely impractical in the early stages of the game because the thruster would consume almost all your fuel instantly. It wouldn't be very efficient. You could use it as a little boost, maybe attached to a vehicle to get out of a tight spot, but you're not going to be flying around in it. Basically, you would have to go through these types of stages to update or level up, I guess, your thruster to make it super efficient with fuel so that you could build a useful or a practical flying vehicle. So that's really interesting. Let's continue now with what I was talking about here with the Encrypter. There's only one picture of the Encrypter. Keep that in mind. Developers, maybe there's not a lot to say about the Encrypter either, but they do talk about how the Encrypter can prevent other people from blowing up your stuff. This brings me into the PvP aspect of what scrap mechanic survival may be like in the future. Before, everything seemed to revolve around PvE, or player versus the environment, player versus the farm bots. It seemed like a very one-person kind of game that they were talking about. But the Encrypter gives me hope. It tells me that, you know what, there's going to be a PvP community. There's going to be people fighting other people. There's going to be people building little stations somewhere on the map and hiding those stations and having that be their base of operation. That means the scavenger hunt thing is going to be even more fun, because now you're not just looking for resources, you're competing for resources to build your bases with other people who are hiding their bases. There could be confrontations, there could be battles. This Encrypter represents an incredible aspect to the scrap mechanic game. And it really does tell me that the developers do care about the PvP aspect of the game. There's going to be a PvP community in scrap mechanics. Not just all going to be creative and, you know, PvE, players versus the environment. So that just broadens the whole scope of what the game's about. All right, we're going to scroll down now, and we're going to be talking about challenge mode. Now, I can tell the developers are really excited about challenge mode, and we're going to spend a couple of minutes just talking about challenge mode. So kick your feet up, because Chief has a lot to say about challenge mode. I've made some predictions already in the previous Devblog, and I had a feeling where things were going to be going with challenge mode, and I haven't been disappointed with what I'm being shown here. We will cross-reference. Here are some pictures of what the old challenge mode that they showed us in the previous Devblog looks like. This is first picture, the car next to the ball. Next picture shows a nice big old arena type area. And the last picture shows you like headed down into Actionville. But I want to go back to the second picture and talk about how it shows the environment pretty much all blocked up. There's like a lot of material. In the challenge mode that they show us now, we've got this cool looking energy field. We have, instead of like in the previous challenge mode photos we saw in the previous Devblog, now we have more of just like a skybox surrounding the challenge platform that you start on. And this is good. The skybox looks cool. And it means that less resources are going to be going into rendering a lot of these other unnecessary places, pretty much, where no challenge is going on. And all of it is going to be going into the arena itself, or what you're trying to do. Obviously, they have like a little bot that's going to be, I guess, keeping track of how well you're doing. Challenge mode looks like it's a single player thing. And I don't know how much I'm going to get into the single player aspect of it. I'm pretty sure once this is unleashed and the modding community gets a hang of it, there'll be 2-player. There'll be whatever. Dude, you can't stop modders. They'll do whatever they want. But as far as challenge mode is concerned, let's this brings me back to the timeline in the game. We were told a lot about survival mode, and there was for 2 years and they never said anything about challenge mode. All of a sudden, challenge mode not only is a thing, it has superseded survival mode on the timeline. So I bet there's some people that might feel a little salty because of that, because they were waiting for survival mode. This is an important step, and I'm going to get into why I believe challenge mode is taking a step up in an almost unprecedented way, and we have so many pictures on it because the developers are really excited about it, in my opinion. And not only did we get like 3 pictures in the previous Devblog, now we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pictures in this Devblog. So I mean, this is it, dude. They love this challenge mode, and I'm going to love it too, and I'm going to tell you why. When they were developing Scrap Mechanic, they opened it up to the modding community, and a specific modder, MJM, one of my favorite modders, he built a pipe system, a thin little pipe system, like the one they're using right here in their demo car, all right? Pay attention to the car, because they're seeing like a repeating trend with this specific looking car. MJM came up with the small pipes. He put that into his mod. It instantly became like the favorite part of every person ever playing Scrap Mechanic that used mods. It became so popular, the developers took notice. They're like, gee whiz, why didn't we ever think of this? And they put the small pipes into their vanilla Scrap Mechanic game. Now, the small pipes is like a part of Scrap Mechanic. This brings me to survival mode now. What does this have anything to do with survival mode? It has everything to do with survival mode. For survival mode to be fun, there needs to be challenges in it. And what better way to come up with fun challenges for your survival game than to brute force every possible challenge that the community that they've cultivated can come up with a challenge mode. It's about collecting data, all right? And that's why the timeline is the way it is. Challenge mode is moved up in the timeline. Survival mode has been pushed back in the timeline because the developers want to see what you guys could come up with as far as challenges are concerned. And Just like the small pipes got worked into vanilla scrap mechanic, so will probably some of the best challenges that people come up with may work itself into the survival mode of the game. Now, why, again though, why not give us survival? And this, look, survival for scrap mechanic is such a complex thing when you don't brute force every possible possibility that someone could come up with a certain given number of parts. I'm going to be honest with you guys. If they deploy survival mode now, and they expect people to use a certain number of parts in a certain way to accomplish a specific task, and somebody comes up with a completely unique, unexpected idea to use the parts way more efficiently than even the developers can imagine, and this has happened. I've seen these types of things happen in my community. What? You use that like what? It's genius, and it's unaccountable. It's untabulated. They can't account for it. You basically can build your own exploits, all right? And survival challenges are predicated on what the developers know you'll be able to build. So, if survival is deployed and people start coming up with all these things that none of the developers were ever prepared for, it would instantly break the game. It's just sad. But it's true. This is where challenge mode comes in. Challenge mode is a way to brute force those types of behaviors. Now, instead of them watching their survival mode be completely ripped apart by all the geniuses in their community, they're going to build a challenge mode and just sit back and see what the people come up with, how the people attack those problems, and based on that data, they're going to build an even better survival mode for us. These guys are smart. And I told you I was going to spend a lot of time on this because it's important. It's important to understand why the timeline is moving the way it is, why it fluctuates the way it does, and why certain things get pushed forward and other things get moved back. As far as what they're showing us here, just looks like they didn't give us as much visual information as they did in the previous devblog. We only see the starting point and what I'm assuming here is an ending point, where I guess you dropped the ball in there somehow. But between here and there, there's just not enough information for me to make any other conclusions. The day-night cycle, what can I say? I mean, I long for the day when me and my friends could be in this beautiful scrap mechanic world together, just exploring these vast maps. You could see kind of like all these little squares. So these are like planting fields, I think, back there in the background. But I see a few extra types of trees here. Looks gorgeous. The extra shine on our hammer. I mean, that's cool. And all the other things. There's so much work to do in a video game that I don't even know where to start. But before I close this video, let me make sure I check my talking points. We talked so much about survival mode and why it's on the timeline the way it is. Challenge mode, I spent plenty of time there. The crafting chain, yep, we referenced that. We talked about consumables, we talked about PvP, and we talked about the Encrypter. And we mentioned some of the other stuff that is cool, but I don't think it's as important as some of the main talking points that we went over. So, I think that about wraps it up with everything that I wanted to cover. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Once again, I was your host, Chief Engineer, reminding you all to keep dreaming, keep building, and you could learn a lot about someone by the things they build. So pay attention to the stuff people are building. Not kidding, dude. You'll learn a lot about them. As for the stuff going on the left side here of the screen, that's just some fun times that I do in my community, whether it was on Twitch, mostly on Twitch nowadays. So yeah, like I said at the beginning of the video, if you want to stay in touch, if If you want to be a part of the coolest scrap mechanic community ever, gotta follow me on Twitch, because I'm not gonna tell you when I'm gonna be on Twitch. There's no schedule, dude. That's the way I love to do it. When I'm on, I'm on. When I'm not, I'm not. As for this Devblog 16, it was awesome. It was amazing. Looking so forward to sharing this video with you all. Until next time, I was your host, Chief Engineer, signing off. Bye-bye.